Hey, what's up, guys? It's been a couple of weeks since I had the last one of these, and we've been pretty busy. So I'm going to kind of hop right into it. Bunch of things going on within the organization here, kind of all at once. I think most importantly, we had a little bit of a trip that we took. Some of the team and myself jumping around everywhere from San Francisco, Aspen, New York, finally coming back here to LA, and that's kind of what I want to talk about is. We've made a lot of big shifts within the organization, just kind of realigning ourselves with our targets coming in here to the end of the year, and primarily what's going to be happening in 2023, which is no surprise, the L1 we've been talking about. But I think that just talking a little bit about the last few weeks when I've been absent, I've had the whole team here basically in Los Angeles. We brought a lot of the team here for their first time to kind of sit down and roundtable discussion where we're at. And what basically needs to be done to make sure that we start to hit these targets we have coming up. And it was a very cool session. We talked about everything from, consensus mechanism, blockchain architecture, up to how we're going to approach the market, our value proposition, and things like that, how we're basically going to position ourselves in this new industry we're seeing that's starting to form. And I'm going to talk about that in a second. But the last few weeks were hugely informative to kind of get us positioned correctly so we can start talking more about what's happening publicly. And out of those couple of weeks, we brought in some new people as well. I believe we've added, probably in the past 30 days, I think we've added 5 new people. A couple of people actually are going to be focusing a lot more on research and data, but I'm going to go ahead and talk about that at the end, because that's going to be kind of a fun kind of piece of this. So getting into it, what I want to talk about today is a conversation I've been refining now for some time. It's been weeks in the making. And as you guys, I'm sure know, when I say things again and again and again in here, it gets better every time. So that's really what you're doing listening here, is making me better. So what I want to talk about today is block space. So block space has been a big focus of mine in the conversation. I think I've kind of settled on it being the way, the most effective way to talk about the industry. And I'm going to go ahead and just talk about a little bit about the history of blockchain, which everyone I'm sure here knows, and a little bit about where we're seeing the future in relation to that, with a slightly different lens. So block space is quite simply time and space. It's basically computational time that goes into a block produced by a validator, as well as some data that could be stored. So when you think about blockchain, it's producing blocks. A validator constructs a block, which is basically a shipping container, and they sell that off to the people that bid the most. So people come in and they say, hey, I'm going to pay X amount to store this much information, do this much computational processing. It's going to cost you this much CPU time. And that's actually how gas fees are calculated, essentially. So when you're a validator, you're basically looking at the blockchain. People submit transactions to the pool, and you go in and say, hey, the most expensive ones are the ones that I want to put in this block so I can collect the most transaction fees. You fill up a block, and at the end of the block time, you ship it. And that's essentially how a blockchain works, right? This is nothing new to anyone, I'm sure. Just a little bit different in terms of the terminology. So when I consider that, right, you're basically producing these blocks every, let's say, 12 seconds, such as on Ethereum, filling them as much as you can to get as many transaction fees packaged as you can. You ship it off, and the next validator comes in and does the exact same thing. And that way, if there's a lot of people trying to join the same block, the same space, then they bid more to fill up that space sooner, or to get into a block earlier, etc. Because you're choosing the most expensive ones. So when you really think about the blockchain itself, I think that the business is selling block space. If you were to compare it to manufacturing, it's manufacturing a block and it's shipping it out like an empty shipping container. Now, let's take a second to think about how blockchain businesses started to form around this. So they came up with a gas token. Obviously, every L1 has a gas token, typically of some kind, and that's essentially how the block space is paid for. You have to purchase this gas token so you can pay for that block space you've decided to buy. Now, from the position of the blockchain as a business, like, you know, sometimes it's a foundation or some kind of organization, they go out there and they mint some amount of tokens, you know, some number of native gas tokens, and they sell those. So when they're selling these gas tokens, right, they're not selling block space, obviously, because no blocks have been produced. And when they sell a block, when they sell a token today, they're not selling block space today. When you compare it back to the manufacturing example, they're essentially selling block space futures. So a blockchain is selling what they believe the future value of the block space will be. So if they produce, you know, more full blocks now, or the prices of a block today goes up, it doesn't affect their revenue. It doesn't affect their revenue model today. It just basically affects their, you know, operational costs. So you're a blockchain, you're selling off these futures, which is your future value, and essentially it puts you in the position as a company where the most beneficial thing to you is convincing people that that future is worth more, or that block space will be worth more in the future. So how would you do that? There's obviously nothing you can do to the structure of blockchain. That doesn't really make a difference. What you do today does nothing. But what you can do is focus on things like marketing, partnerships, deals with Starbucks or whatever else. That's what kind of incentivizes this notion that, hey, in the future, there will be more demand, and therefore the block space will be worth more. So that's where the focus and essentially the efforts of these businesses go, because that's where they generate more revenue. But from my perspective, that's kind of backwards. You know, if you're a business, you're producing a block and you're shipping it out, it'd be great if the incentives were in line such that the more blocks you ship, the more you make. The more full that they are, the more that you make. The faster, larger capacity, more consistent, that you can operate that, better tools, the more that you make. That would be more akin to an actual business. And that's kind of how we've reapproached this, right? Is we're saying, you know, a lot of blockchains today sell these futures, their future capacity. When they run out of those futures, there's not really much incentive for them to continue to operate or build on that chain, because they've kind of sold that their ability to generate revenue off. So we're approaching this very differently. And we're kind of seeing it as, if we were to build a company around the concept of block space now, we should just be selling block space in real time. And the more we sell, the more that we make. And that's essentially takes us away from the concept of a native token being issued to self, that future value. And that's how we got to basically a stablecoin derived L1. Is you're sitting there and saying, okay, so now what I'm going to do is make it so when people go out to purchase that block space, they're doing it because they want to use the network as much as they can, because we want to incentivize them to utilize the network more, and we want to make sure that there's more use case on that network. So I think from a marketing perspective, where your cash flow, your expenses go, it shifts them more away from marketing and more towards things like technology, tooling, and things like that. And that's how we're going to position ourselves as a business, because for us, it makes sense. It just aligns the incentives of the network with ours as a business. And so I think that's my simplification for block space and kind of how we've approached the problem of constructing a business in the industry. And that's how we're going to continue to operate from here. And I'm super excited to kind of provide more insight on how we're accomplishing that. So obviously you can jump from here and go, oh, that's why they're not going to issue a native token. It's why they're going to accept USDC or some stable coin, essentially, to pay for those transactions. So the validator is paid in dollars for what they do. And so yeah, super exciting to kind of start talking more about this publicly. We have a lot more to say on the subject. Obviously, you guys are just kind of seeing the tip of the iceberg, but I did want to give a little bit of insight off of these 2 weeks and where the refinement in the positioning has come from. So I'm excited because it gives us the opportunity to approach the industry from a very different perspective, and it gives us the opportunity to basically align the operations of the business with the essentially, it gives us the opportunity to align the operations of the business with the operation of the network, and it doesn't put us in contention with that. So that's what's exciting to me. So lastly, I do want to talk a little bit about, I posted a spreadsheet with some data and a conversation that we had in here a couple of weeks ago. And it was, it showed a lot of kind of our insights in the space and the things that we were looking at, such as transaction costs, how much of a native token is in circulation on a blockchain, essentially the way tokenomics are working, and or as I would put it, working against the adoption of blockchain as a technology. And we're going to go ahead and make that a more publicly available doc. So you can get in there and play with it, see the information that we found. It took a decent amount of effort to collect data like that. And yeah, we just want to see it go to good use. So I'm super happy to see people dive in and take a look at this and start approaching the problem a little differently, which is how we've been working. So yeah, that's kind of it. That's kind of my updates here for today. In the future, if you guys have any questions and you post them in the stream here, I'll go ahead and try to address those. And yeah, we can take it from there, guys. So thank you all so much for tuning in. I hope you all have a great day, great rest of your week, and I'll talk to you all soon. Bye.